Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello Nets, welcome once again to Joy Learning TV. This is our junior high school hour. My name is Isaac Ohene-Amankwa and I'm going to take you through ICT. Well, last week we had a joyful week. We learned a lot, and this week we are going to recap something that we have learned in our previous years. Now, before we go on, by the time we are done with our lessons for today, we should be able to create a folder. Right, I'm taking it all over again. I left the topic out. Hello Neds, welcome once again to Junior High School Hour on Joy Learning TV. I'm your facilitator Isaac Ohene-Amankwa and I'm going to take you through ICT. Today we are going to talk about files and folder management. And before we end this lesson, we should be able to create our own folders. Yes, a folder, and also should be able to move folders from one location to another. We should also be able to move files into folders using the cut and paste method, and also rename folders using the right mouse click, and also understand the difference between a folder and a file. Now, before we move on to today's lesson, I want us to have a little recap on something on graphic user interface, something that you did last year. And hey, if you are not familiar with it, you can still go to our YouTube channel and go look for graphic user interface, or you can also look for the desktop of a computer or computer desktop, and you will get the information I'm about to share with you in details though. Now today we wanted to recap something on computer desktop. Now before we get to files and folders, if you are familiar with the computer desktop, you realize that in the features of computer desktop we have our taskbar, we have our main desktop area where we have our icons located. Now on the icons, we said we could have these icons represent files and sometimes programs, and also we said we had folders on our computer desktop. Now today we are going to begin with the folder. We are just picking them one after the other. We are beginning with the files. Then we move ahead to folders. So when we talk about files, what are files? In computer, what are files? Now, I know you might have come across the word files from, let's say, your school, or even when you have visited some hospitals and other workplaces, even daddy's workplace or mommy's workplace. You might have heard the word file. Now, what are files? Now, this time we are not describing the hard or the physical file, but we are describing a computer file. So we say a computer file is simply a document or a created document that has been saved on the computer. So a document that has been saved on our computer is therefore called a file. Again, a document saved on our computer is called a file. The types of file is determined by the program we use or which is used in creating the document or the file. Now, if you take something like Word or Microsoft Word, it creates a file which is also in Word format. It creates a file which is in Word format and has an extension. The extension for Microsoft Word is .docx. .docx. When it comes to Excel, or Microsoft Excel, we have .xls. And other files which are not web-based, but on our screen over here, we have an example of a file here, which is an AI, which simply stands for Adobe Illustrator. And you realize that one of the extensions that it has, or the file format, is rather what? SVG. That's what? A different file format. And it also has what? It can also be saved in an .ai format. So each file has their unique features or their unique way of saving their own what? File. Now remember, you cannot open an Excel file, or let's say a Photoshop file, in Microsoft Word. It is not possible. They are two different programs. So remember, a file is what? A document which has been what? Saved on our computers. And also, a file is what? Determined by what? The program used in what? Creating it. Okay. So, as I said on our screens, we have other files format here. This is Microsoft Access. We have this one to be Excel. And we have this one, the PS, to be Photoshop. This is basically what a file is. Let's go to folders. Today's lesson will be quite short. It will not be that lengthy. Now, a folder is a container or a space where files and other folders are kept. A folder is a container or a space where files and other folders are kept. Now, probably you might have visited daddy's workplace or mommy's workplace or even the hospital. When you get to the OPD departments, let's say in the hospitals, you are told to go for your file or folder. Now, we have used file and folder interchangeably, but in computing, file is different from a folder. A file is different from what? A folder. A file is different from a folder. So, an example is, as I said, is what? When you go to the hospital, you realize that you go for a book or a paper where other documents have been placed in. That is what we call a folder. Okay. So, now let's look at an example. When we look at this over here, this is an example of a folder. Yes, a folder. When we open it, we can place our documents or our files in here. So anytime you hear the word folder, you should know we are talking about something like this. Hey, and there is a replica of this folder in our computers. There's a replica of these folders in our computers. So we have seen an example of what? A folder. That's a physical folder. Now, if we check our screens very well, we realize that we have a yellow, like something like this. It looks very much like this folder, and it's opened a little bit with documents in it, with documents or files in them. So when we're talking about a folder or a computer folder, it always or normally comes in what? In yellow. Now, do you know that with folders we have different types of folders? Yes, we have different types of folders. Well, we might all have come across our normal folders that we create and we put items in there, and I call them the custom made folders or the custom folders. But there are other two types of folders which are very important and you must not mess with them. Now, the first one is what we call the system folder. The system folder. Now, when we talk about a system folder, we are talking about a folder that is located or that has files from the operating system being stored in them. Files and folders from the operating system are stored in there. We will come to them. Then we also have what we call the program folders, and as I mentioned already, what custom folders. So let's look at system folders. System folders. Now these are folders that contains files which regulate the operating system. They do what? They regulate the operating system. Names of these folders or files in them cannot be tampered with. Immediately you change any name or any folder or delete any folder, what you are doing is that you are rather what? Deleting part of the operating system, which will bring about what? Malfunctioning of your operating system. So remember, the names of the folders and files cannot be what? Tampered with. The names are generated by the operating system itself. No one generates or no one writes or types the name. It is generated by what? The operating system itself. So remember, don't tamper with them. Now, let me show you an example of this system folder. So let's go to our desktop. I have a folder here. So come to Drive C. Now, if you check over here, these folders over here are these app compact, any folder you see here. These are all part of system folders, and you cannot mess with them. You cannot change anything. Don't try it. Immediately you try, you mess up your operating system. Your computer or your laptop will not function as they are supposed to. And if you don't take care, you might crash your hard disk. Okay. So the next one is what? Programs folders. Now, program folders are similar to what? System folders. But this time, the program folders are created by programs or applications, software applications themselves. Application softwares themselves. So we have, they say what? These are folders that contains all information that regulates the function of programs installed on the computer. Names of these folders or files in them cannot be tampered with also. You cannot tamper with them. Please, if you don't have any knowledge about them, don't tamper with them, because they can render your application error. They can render them in error. That means you try operating them and it's not operate properly. So please, or you'll be receiving error signs. So please, folders like program folders and system folders, don't touch them. Don't delete anything. Don't. The only time you can delete something from a program folder is when you have uninstalled the program from your laptop or your computer. By that time, you can delete any folder from there, but not any other folder apart from the one you have uninstalled. So let's look at an example of a programs folder. There's our folder, first folder. So we go to, now if you open the local drive, a set of folders are given to you. We have the Intel. The Intel is part of the system folder. Perfect log. We have the program files and program files times 86. These are what we call the program files. So these two, either the program files or the program files with 86 attached to it, that is what we call the program folder. So when we click them, we have common files. So you realize that all the applications on our computer have their folders in here. So we have something like Microsoft Office, which is there. We have Mozilla Firefox. We have VideoLAN, which is for VLC. We have Windows Defender, Windows Mail. These are all programs which are installed on the computer, either pre-installed or installed by ourselves. So this is where they are located. And you can go to program files. It says you can have other programs also located there, which is we have the Mozilla Maintenance Service, Microsoft, we have Google, we have Common Files. There are so many programs there, Windows Defender. So you realize that the programs you find on the program files and the program files into bracket times indices are basically similar and the same. Okay, so that is for our program files. Then we come to the third type, which I call it the custom folders. Now, these custom folders are folders we create to save our files. You might create your own folder on the desktop or anywhere in the computer to save your file. Now, let me ask you, where do you think all folders on the computers are stored? This is a simple trick question. Where are all folders on the computers stored? Well, it's very simple. They are all stored on the hard disk drive. They are stored where? On the hard disk drive. So, remember, all folders are stored on the hard disk drive. Let's continue. Now, there are other types of folders like my document, my music, my picture, videos. Some will have it as picture, document, computer. These are also part of system files, but these ones, they are more or less like custom folders. You can easily operate them, rename them. Not always, but very careful. You should be very, very careful when you are touching them. The only thing is these are folders labeled according to their purpose or their function. And when you look at music files will be in there. You have sample music files in there. If you look at pictures or by picture, you find sample pictures in there. By documents, you might find documents in there. When someone sends you a document using, let's say, Bluetooth or download any document online, sometimes the default settings will put the document you have downloaded in the right folder. Sometimes they go to my download, and within my download, you have documents, videos, and pictures also over there. But when someone transfers a document from, let's say, a phone or from anywhere, sometimes they are placed in our right document area. Hey, when you create a document, a Word file, automatically or the default setting is that it should be saved in my document. If you take a picture with your web camera or the camera on the upper part of your laptop, it saves it in my picture. If you create a sound or record a voice or do an audio recording, automatically it will save where? Thank you very much. That is my music. So anytime you are saving or you are recording or creating a document, remember, if you have forgotten where it is saved, check the right places. By document, by music, by picture, and all those places. Now, let's look at the difference between a file and a folder. We are going to look at just two differences. After this, you can go online, Google the difference between files and folders, if you can get any of them, or if you have any of them in mind, pen them down. Okay, so when we come to the difference between files and folders, remember, folders are created, files are also created, so that is not a difference. But the mode of creation brings about a difference. A file is created by an application or a program or a software. Remember, a file needs an application or a program or a software to create and also to open it. But a folder, on the other hand, does not need any of such. It does not need any special application or software or program to open it. Okay. A file cannot contain and does not contain other files. A file cannot contain or does not contain other files. A folder can contain and sometimes contain other files and folders. That is where we have what we call subfolders. We have what we call subfolders. So simply, subfolders are folders that are found within another folder. And that folder will be called a main folder. A main folder. Okay. Let's look at how to create a folder. How to create a folder. So in creating a folder, the question is, why do you even have to create a folder? Why is it necessary to create a folder? I want you to write it down in your pens and papers. If you have not taken your books or your pens, just go grab them and write it down. Why do we need to create a folder? Or the reason behind creating a folder. So I'm waiting for you. Okay. Now, by the time we are done with our lesson, we will see why we create a folder. But let's go on to the creation of a folder. Now, to create a folder, first you have to locate the destination. That is where you want the folder to be. Are you making that folder a subfolder or a main folder? Now, if it's a main folder, then definitely it's going to be on the desktop of the computer. But if it's a subfolder, then you have to open the main folder. Well, it could be a folder in My Document where you want to group or organize certain documents you have. You want to separate them from other documents so that you don't get it messed up. So you can create a folder in My Document, which now becomes a subfolder. So the creation of a folder doesn't need it to be a subfolder or a main folder. They all have the same process. All you need to know is where to locate the folder. And please remember, always put it in your mind where you created the folder. And when creating folder, there's one key thing which is very important. That is the name of the folder. Remember, put it in your head. Let the name be simple, something that you can easily remember. Okay, let's go through the steps. The first step is right click on an empty space on the desktop. Right click on an empty space on the desktop. Then the next step is choose new from the pop-up menu. And choose new from the pop-up menu open. Then the next step is select folder from the drop-down list. Select folder from the drop-down list. Write the name of the folder and press enter on the keyboard. So I'm going to go through the steps again, then we go and practice. Remember, practice makes man perfect. So right click on an empty space on the document on the desktop. Scroll down from where we have our pop-up menu. You scroll down to new. New from our pop-up menu. Then a drop-down list appears. From the drop-down list, you select folder. The folder is then placed on the desktop for you to rename. Now, there is a default name. There is a default name for every folder, which is new folder. Then you press what? You enter the name of the folder and press what? Enter. So let's go to our desktop and try it out. So there's our desktop. We are going to create a folder and we are going to name it ICT. So we first right click. When we right click, there's an empty space, so we right click and we now have our new pop-up menu, which is view, sort, refresh. We have paste shortcut, undo, move, and NVIDIA control panel. We have our what? New. So our new is below NVIDIA control. So we move our mouse and click. Now we have our drop down list, and from our drop down list we have folder, the first option, which is what? Folder. So we click on what? Folder. Now when we click on the folder, our folder has appeared on our desktop. Now the next thing to do, you realize that the name section for the folder is new folder and it has been highlighted. That means we have been given the opportunity to what? Rename the folder. If you don't rename it, what you are going to have will be what? New folder. Now let's decide not to rename it and see what happens. We realize that the folder has now got the name what? New folder. So imagine you have new folder. How would you determine, or will you identify the type of files in the folder? That is why it is necessary to what? Name your folder. So we are going to delete this folder and create another one with the name ICT. So right click, then we come to what? New, then we move towards folder. Now to write the name ICT, we have to clear the selection and type ICT. When we are done, we click what? Enter. Now we have created our first folder. That is very simple. Should we go over again? Well, so let's go over again. So right click on an empty space, select new, select folder from the drop down list. The folder appears. Then you type the name, or you clear the name and type your preferred name. Our preferred name is ICT. So we have created our what? Folder. So we have our first folder. Let's go back to our slides. So we are done with our first demonstration. So how to move folders. Now there are times you create a folder and you need to move it to another place, or when organizing your desktop you need to regroup them in a particular folder. So we are going to learn how to what? Group a folder. Now in grouping a folder, the first step is what? Right click on that folder, on the folder that select from the pop-up menu and click on it. Select what? Copy. Select copy. When you are done with selecting the copy, then you go to your destination. Please, there are two words we are using here. We are using targeted and destination. Where targeted simply means folder you want to copy or move. Folder you want to copy or move. And destination will be what? Where you want to place them. So wherever the folder you cut or you copy becomes your target folder, and where you place them becomes your what? Destination location or destination folder. So we are going to look at that. So it says what? Right click on the icon of the target folder, select copy from the pop-up what? Menu and click on it. Right click on the what? Icon of the destination folder, select paste from the pop-up menu and click on it. Now you realize that we didn't need to open the destination folder before pasting it, but we pasted it directly. Yes, you can also paste it without opening the destination folder, and you can also what? Open the destination folder and still what? Paste it there. So let's go through the process once more. It says what? Right click on the icon of the targeted folder, select copy from the pop-up menu and click on it. Then the third is what? Right click on the destination folder or the icon of the destination folder, and the last one is what? Select paste from the pop-up menu and click on it. Then you are done with what? Moving the folder from one location to another. So let's look at this. Let's practice it. Practice makes perfect. So we have two folders here. We have the SHS revision show, and we have ICT. We want to move ICT into SHS revision show folder. So as we said, you right click, then you have our pop-up menu. Then we select what? Copy. Then we right click on that. So this ICT becomes our target folder. Then the SHS becomes our revision, our destination folder. So we right click over there. Then we click on what? Paste. Now, when we open the folder, we realize that we have our ICT over there. We have our ICT folder there. We have our ICT folder there. Now, one thing we should realize is that when we still open, let me delete this one. And minimize it. We still open, so we copy this one, come back to this place and look for an empty place, right click and click on paste. We still have our ICT folder there. But are we moving the whole folder, or we are just copying it? So if you want to copy a folder, that means leave its original and duplicate it somewhere else. That is where you use what? Copy. But if you want to take the whole folder from that location to another location, then we need not to use copy, but we use cut instead of copy. We use cut instead of what? Copy. So if you want to take the whole folder without leaving its original, then we have to use what? Cut. Is it not that simple? Let's try that one. So we are taking this ICT folder, we are taking it off the desktop. We want to put it in our SHS folder. So we right click, then we click on what? Cut. We realize that it is now fade. That means it has been cut, waiting for the next command. So we right click on the destination folder and we click on what? Paste. Now we realize that there is no trace of our former folder, which is what? ICT. We can only locate it in where? the SHS folder, which is what over here. Okay, so I'm going to move it from this folder back onto our desktop. And this is how we do it. We go through the same process, but this time, since it's not in the folder, it's on the desktop. So we just cut, you right click here and paste. If you didn't get this, don't worry, we'll come to that one. Let's go back to our slides. Now, we have done with what? Moving folders. What about files? Do they have the same process? Yes, they have the same process. And as I said, if you want to copy and leave its original, you can copy. That means you are making a duplicate of what? The file. But if you want to cut it, then you use cut, where you use what? Copy. Okay, so these are the process, or these are the steps. We have first right click on the target file. Right click on the target file. From the pop-up menu, select what? Copy or what? Cut. So it depends on what you are doing. If in examination you are asked to what? Write the steps in copying a file, you might not see moving a file, but you might see what? Copying a file. Then remember to use what? Copy instead of what? Cut. If you are asked to what? Cut or move a file by what? Cutting, then you use what? Cut instead of what? Copying. I hope you get it. Okay, so the third step says what? Right click on the icon of the destination folder. Right click on the icon of the destination folder. Then select what? Paste. So you realize that they are one and the same thing. When it comes to moving a folder, the process is the same as what? Moving a file. So we are going to move this file over here. Let's say these two files, let me gather them here. We'll be using them later. So we have these files here. We want to put, let's say, JHS1 graphic user interface in our ICT folder. I've disorganized the desktop. Bear with me. Okay, so we right click. If we are making a duplicate, then we click on what? Copy. Then we right click on our folder and click on what? Paste. So we have moved, let's check, it is over here. We have our file in the folder. Okay, so let's delete it. Let's cut it, move it from, let's cut it from what? The desktop and place it in the folder. So we right click, then we click on what? Cut. Then we right click on the what? Folder and click on paste. Then we have moved it totally from what? The desktop without a trace. Okay. Do you know we can also move it without going through, how do we call it? Copying and pasting. That is when you want to move it totally into the folder. But we'll come to that. Let's go on to the next, which is what? Renaming a folder. Now, after you have created your folder, named your folder, you decided that you want to change the name of the folder. What do we do? Or how do we do it? So the process says what? We first what? One thing, please remember, locate your folder. It's very, very important. If you don't locate your folder, you'll be in trouble. So you right click on the target folder. Then from the pop-up menu, you select rename. You select rename. You select what? Rename. Then you type your preferred name and you press what? Enter to save the name. type your preferred name and press enter to save your new name. So let's practice it and see. We have ICT here. We want to rename it to, let's say, info. So we right click, then we come to rename. Rename is just before properties, the last but one command before properties. So we click on rename, then you realize that the name section, which is ICT, is highlighted. Then we can rename into what? Info. So after having info written, we can click on what? Enter. We now have a new name for our folder, which is what? Info. Which is what? Info. Okay. So let's go over again. We are going to rename our info folder back to what? ICT. So we first right click. We select what? Rename. Enter your preferred name and press enter to save the new name. So we now have ICT back as the new name. So anytime your file or your folder has been renamed or you want to rename, go through this process and you'll be able to do it. Okay, let's look at copying files and folders. We are coming back to copying files and folders again. And this time we are going to look at selecting. How to select a file or a folder. Realize that we are dealing with what? A single file. What if you are supposed to what? Select more than one files? What do we do? So we said to select a file means to click on that file. That means we have selected it. But if you want to select more than one file which are not located next to each other, what do? It says what? Hold down the control key and click on each item. So let's practice. Hold down the control key and select each item. So we are going to look at this folder, this file here, and this file here. These two files, let me separate them here. We are going to what? Select the two files and put them in the ICT folder. So to select, we are told to what? Click on what? Control and select the first one. Move to the other one and also select it. Now, the two files have been selected. Then we can choose any of them to right click on. Then if we are copying, we select copy. If we are cutting, we select cut. So let's say we are cutting. We have cut. Then we select our destination folder and right click on it. We have our drop down menu. Then we select what? Paste. Then we have moved our what? Files from the desktop to our folder. Let's try it again. You saw what I just did? I just moved all the files to one place on the desktop. And what I just did is what we call the drag and drop. We will come to that one, don't worry. So, once again, we are going to move these files, this 1, 2, 3, these three files. Then we are going to move them into what? ICT folder. So first, we said we press the control, then we select our first file, select our second one, and the third one. Then we right click on any of the files. If we are cutting, we select what? Cut. Then our destination folder is also selected. Then we select what? We right click and select paste. So we have moved our files from the desktop to our folder. So the next type of selecting says to select a range of items that are next to each other, hold down the shift key. Click the first item and the last item. All the items between the first and the last will be highlighted. Again, to select a range of items that are next to each other, hold down the shift key. The shift key. Then you select the first one and the last one. The first file or folder and the last file or folder. Then all the folders or files in between them will all be selected automatically. So let's try it and see. This time we are going to open this folder and try using this folder. We are going to start from this one, that's the government, but before then we have deselected it. So it says we should first hold down the shift. So let's change it to balancing redox reaction. So we select this one first. Sorry. So let's say we select this. That's balancing. Then we come to Form 2 lessons for literature. So we select that one. All the files between them have been selected. So it is that easy. If you want to select a file or the number of files which are close to each other, you hold the shift, select the first file and the last file. Automatically, the files in between them will all be selected. Let's go back to our slides. And the last one, the last type of selection that we can also do is when we want to select all the items. All the items. It's very easy. We first have to select the item, any of them, or you might not select any of them. But the best thing is to select any of them and press Ctrl and A. Ctrl plus A. Ctrl plus A. You press and hold the Ctrl and you add A. If you press Ctrl and take your hands off and press A, it will not give you your desired result. So you press and hold Ctrl and A. Then you have all files selected. So let's try our hands on it once more. We have this folder here. We want to select everything in the folder. So let's close the folder first. We are reopening the folder. That thing is selected here. If we press Ctrl and A, it selects everything, as I said. You can also choose to select just one and press Ctrl A. It still selects. Hey, you can also use the old trick by selecting the first one, holding the shift, select the first one, and drag your scroll bar down to the last file and select. Everything will also be selected. So in selecting a file is quite easy and simple. Remember, to select a single file, you click on the file. You have selected it or you have highlighted it. To select more than one file which are not close to each other, we first click on the Control. We press down the Control key and select the individual files we want to select. And to select files which are close to each other, we said we have to what? Press the shift key, select the first one and the last one, then the files between these two selections will all be automatically what? Highlighted or selected. And to select everything, we click on what? Control plus A, which will select every file in the particular folder or even the desktop. Okay. Now, copying files and folders using menus and keyboard shortcuts. We have already done something like this, but this time we are going to incorporate keyboard shortcuts into them. So to copy or move the file from one place to another, instead of right-clicking, hey, this is a bonus. Instead of right-clicking, just click on the selected folder or file. Then you press Control without taking your hands off, plus X, which is for cut, and Control plus C, which is for copy. So if you want to copy, then you select the file or folder, you press and hold Control and C to copy, Control and X to cut. Then you have cut or copied your file. Then when you are done, you go to your destination folder, you either open it or select it and use the keyboard shortcut key, which is Control plus V, which is for paste. Control plus V, which is for what? Paste. So if you use Control plus V, you are pasting. If you use Control plus X, you are cutting. Control plus C, you are copying. So that is how we what? Copy, cut, and paste documents. So soon we are coming to the end of this program, but before then I want you to look at these questions for me and try your hands on them. These are a set of 5 questions and they are very simple also. So the first question says, what is a file? What is a file? Second question says, what is a subfolder? What is a subfolder? The third question says, what is a folder? What is a folder? The fourth one says, what is the function of the following? What is the function of the following? A, system folder, and B, programs folder. And the last one is what? State the steps in creating a folder. I'm giving you 10 minutes. Let's finish it up. I can see most of you are done with it already. Most of those who are not done with it, let's fasten up a little bit. As you conclude it, let me also go over the questions once more. And the first question says, what is a file? The second question, what is a subfolder? The third question, what is a folder? The fourth question says, what is the function of the following? 1, system folder. 2, programs folder. And the last question, which is the question 5, says, state the steps in creating a folder. State the steps in creating a folder. You should be finishing by now. Now let's look at the solutions. So the first question, what is a file? And we say a file is a document created by a program. A file is a document created by a program or which has been saved on the computer. So remember, without a program, the file cannot be created. Without a program, the file cannot be opened. So remember, a file is a document which has been created by a program, by a computer program. The second question, what is a subfolder? Remember, we said that a folder can be created in another folder. And when a folder is created in another folder, the folder that has been created becomes what we call a subfolder. So we have a subfolder is a folder which is found in another folder. A subfolder is a folder which is found in another folder. What is a folder itself? A folder is a container or a space which houses files and other folders. It's a container or a space which houses files and other folders. And these other folders I said are called subfolders. Then the question was asked that what is the function of the system folder and the programs folder. Now the system folder contains system files. That's from the operating system. The system folder contains system files from the operating system. That means they regulate the computer. There are files which regulate, or they contain files which regulate the computer system. Then when we come to program folders, they are also containers for program files. They are containers for program files. That means they contain files that regulate the programs installed on computer. They regulate the programs installed on the computer. Then, the question 5 says we should state or list the process of creating a folder. We said to create a folder, we first have to locate where we need to create our folder. But it's not necessary to bring those ones as part of your answers. If you are asked the question, go straight to the process. That is 1. Click on an empty space on the desktop. That is assuming we are creating a folder on the desktop. Click on an empty space on the desktop. Then a pop-up menu opens. Select new from the pop-up menu. A drop-down menu opens again. Now from the drop-down menu, you select folder, new folder. Select new folder or select folder. Then when the folder is created, you are given the opportunity to write the name. So the next step becomes write the name of the new folder and press enter. So I'm going over again. Right click on any empty space on the desktop. Choose new from pop-up menu open. Select folder from the drop-down list. Write the name of the new folder. Press enter on the keyboard. Then you have created your folder. So if you are able to get all 5 questions correct, I owe you a candy. Yes, just candy. If you're able to get all 4, I'll still owe you a candy. Anytime you see me anywhere, just ask me for the candy and you get it. Okay, if you're able to get all 5 correct, you're a genius. If you had all 4 correct, you are still a genius. Well, let me tell you, geniuses make mistakes, but they learn from their mistakes. So you should know that no matter the mistake you make, you still learn from it and you move forward. Okay, so we have come to the end of today's lesson. And what did we learn? We spoke about a file, where we said a file is what? A created document, or a document which has been created and saved on the computer. We also spoke about folders. We said we have a folder which is what? The physical type of folder, and we have the computer folder. And we are talking about computer folders. And we said computer folders are folders that they are containers or spaces where files and other folders are kept in. And we said when a folder is kept in another folder, the folder becomes what we call a subfolder. And the folder which contains the other folder becomes our main folder. We also said we had basically 3 types of folders. Even though we have more, there are technical names to them. But we have the system folders and the program folders. The system folders contain files which are from the operating system, and the program folders contain files which are from what? The program folder, programs. And these files or these folders are not to be tampered with, because the files in them regulate the system or the program. So immediately you tamper with them or delete with them, or you delete any of them, you have tampered with them, and it will cause what? A malfunction of your system or the application for the program. So we also spoke about how to what? Rename, we create folders and move folders. That is all for today. Till we meet next week. It's bye-bye for now. It's ICT. Isaac Ohidamankwa is the name. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.